Good evening, members. Good evening, officers. Item 1 on the agenda is welcome and announcements. Good evening to you all. Welcome to this meeting on the 20th of July 2022 of the Licensing Committee. I am Councillor Dave Harris. I'm a councillor for the Beerchurch ward and I'll be chairing the meeting this evening. To begin with, there are a few matters of housekeeping. First, action in the event of emergency. There are no practice alarms planned for this evening. So if an alarm does sound, please evacuate the town hall by going down the main staircase or the back staircase to the High Street and then to the car park behind the town hall in St Runwald Street. This meeting is being recorded for live broadcast over the internet and would also be available to listen to afterwards. So I welcome those listening and seeing us online. Please would speakers use the microphones at all times and speak directly into the microphone as this activates the audio recording. Members of the committee may use electronic devices to access their meeting papers, and visitors are welcome to use mobile phones and other devices, including cameras, but please use them discreetly, set them to silent, and do not use voice or camera flash functions. The provisions of the Constitution of the Council around the timing of breaks will apply to this meeting. There are toilets on every floor in the building and an induction loop is in this room. Introductions. First, I will now ask members of the committee and attending officers to introduce themselves, starting with the councillor who is on my left.
Councillor Mike Hogg for St Anne's and St John's wards.
Councillor Tim Young, Greenstead ward.
Matthew Evans, Democratic Services Officer.
Lee Tate, Prettygate ward, substituting for Councillor Moore.
Councillor Michelle Burrows, Wivenhoe ward.
Councillor Helen Chua, St Anne's and St John's ward.
Councillor Roger Mannion, Tiptree ward.
Councillor Barbara Wood, Tiptree ward. I was substitute for Patricia Moore.
Good evening. Councillor Roger Buston, Prettygate ward.
John Ruder, Licensing and Food and Safety Manager.
Thank you very much, members. Thank you. Item 2, substitutions. We've already said for the minutes, just to announce Councillor Tate will be substituting for Councillor Moore and Councillor Wood will be substituting for Councillor Hagan. Is that correct? Yep. Urgent items number 3. There are no urgent items. Item 4, members, declarations of interest. This is your opportunity to publicly announce on the item number whether you've got an interest is disclosable, pecuniary or non-pecuniary to the nature of the interest, please. I'm guessing you have, Mike?
Yes, Chairman. On the fact that I hold a personal licence on behalf of a registered charity.
Any others, members? Thank you. Item 5, I invite the committee to confirm as a correct record the minutes of the Licensing Committee meeting that was held on the 1st of June 2022. Agreed? Thank you very much. Item 6, have your say. Has everyone who wishes to speak registered their name? If not, please do so now. Okay, if anyone has a petition they wish to present to me on any of the items on the agenda this evening, please do so now. There are none. Thank you very much. Item 7, the meat of the agenda, councillors. The committee will consider the proposed amended licensing policy for sex establishments and is asked to recommend that it is referred to the full council for adoption. So I invite the licensing officer to present the report.
Thank you, Chair. As you'd see, it's a very short one. We basically updated the policy in relation to the fact we do a lot of stuff online now, and it's just making sure that it's represented within the actual policy itself. Other than that, it's minor changes in relation to spelling errors or grammar. Nothing else. It's likely it may be looked at again as we are doing a full review of the licensing policy in the near future. And in fact, we have started that process already. And that is pretty much it.
Members? Any speakers? Councillor Buston.
Thank you. John, I assume and presume that this is an incremental increase or amendment to the policy as we go along. And I assume that it is very much taken in the light of what we do with other authorities. And therefore, will we compare our policy in regard to these items with those of other authorities, we're likely to find them relatively similar. Would that be a fair comment?
Yes, that would be a fair comment.
Lovely, thank you very much indeed. And going back to for good reason or bad, some of us have been here for upwards of 20 years. We can remember occasions when this committee actually had to go round and inspect premises where either services were sold or entertainment or there were publications or the like. Would it be fair to say that would it be a good observation to make that most of the business seems to now be online rather than needing the physical intervention of the committee as it did before?
We only have one premise in the borough that is currently operational. Other than that, we do not have any shops or venues of that. So yes, most of it is done online now, which doesn't fall within this particular remit.
So the reason for my question is just how long, if this is going to be a growing trend, we will need to go on with the expense of actually producing policies of this nature, would take up a considerable amount of officer time, as well as committee time. There may well come a time when it's all online and there's not a lot for us to do in the first place. Just a thought.
The policy is obviously maintained under constant review, and obviously there is we don't impose any restrictions as of yet. That's not to say that you cannot impose a restriction of premises within the borough, but you would need to have the evidence in order to do so, because obviously under our processes it is open to challenge. But yes, so it's under constant review, so if it's not needed, it wouldn't be needed.
Thank you very much indeed.
Any other? Yes, thank you, Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I've just got a couple of points. I know you said you're going to reread the document. I notice on page 3.2 is missing. It says these premises are shown by ward. There's nothing there at 3.2. It's on the old document, but not on the new one. And then on page 4, on 5.1, I know you said you're going to look at this, but if you go down, you've got A, B, C, C, D. And then on page 5, 7.2 is missing. I don't know why.
Congratulations, thank you very much. Did you want to respond, Mr. Ruder?
Fair play.
So I'm assuming that you'll get assurance that will be corrected on the final document. Thank you for your question. Any other comments? I've got one, if not. On item 4, locations of licensed premises, it goes through to great discretion on that paragraph that talks about each case will be judged on its own merits, and it lists residential accommodation, schools, nurseries, other premises used by children, parks, religious centres, etc., etc. It struck me that maybe if somebody was to apply for one of these premises near a shopping area that was well used by the general public, would we think about that? Would it be in the policy, or would it be dealt with as required basis as the application come in? That was a real sort of question, whether on process, please.
Whilst it's not specifically mentioned, it does say the character or locality, and I think we would take it into consideration under the locality. So it's not, it may not be mentioned, but we would look at that.
That gives me a bit of reassurance. Thank you very much.
But bearing in mind we have 2 empty units at our shopping parade, nice to know that it will be considered.
Agreed. Roger?
And one last point. Again, members who've been here for a few years will remember the problems we had a few years ago relating to premises that opened in London Road, Nexton, that involved a swingers club. And licensing really was not able to be involved in that, much to the annoyance of considerable numbers of members of the public, and neither in fact was planning able to get involved in it. Again, much to the considerable annoyance of members of the public. In our revisions to the policy, are we allowed, by the rules that govern us, to take into account such things as that? Or are we prescribed, as I suspect we are, in what we can do and what we cannot do? The reason I make this comment is clearly we want to be able to avoid that problem in the future, whereby members of the public think the council is completely useless and doesn't actually control anything that it should be controlling. If we're not allowed to do it, we're not allowed to do it. Do we have any comments on
that? As I am the chair of the Essex Joint Licensing Officers Forum, we have had a recent discussion about sexual entertainment venues, and there is an agreement across county that they are all licensable, and as such, moving forward, we would consider them in relation to the voyeurism issue of partaking or watching. And that's the important bit of that particular case, is about the partaking and the voyeurism of it. So we would look at that again if it came up again in this time.
Thank you. That's actually really quite useful, because that then will address the number of points that members of the public made. We were totally beyond our remit in the last occasion, so if it happened in the future, we might well be able to. That's useful. Thank you, John.
Councillor Young?
Yeah, it was said earlier, Chair, that these establishments are on the decline. Is that right nationally, or have we got any figures around the country whether we used to have more? We had sex shops, didn't we, as well as a sex entertainment venue, which is now reopened, I understand. What is the picture like across the country? I'm thinking, are we likely to get any more applications from your knowledge, John?
We did initially. We used to have 4, so there was 2 clubs, 2 shops, and now we only have 1. We did have an application in 2020 in relation to a place that was known back then as the Embassy. So I don't know your answer in terms of decline across the country. I don't think they're as popular as they used to be, but it doesn't mean to say that we won't receive an application.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Young?
Yeah, I just wondered if it'd be worth just, if it's can be done quickly, quick and dirty, as pardon the expression, check on what the figures are like. I'm sure, John, in your position with your contacts in other councils, if they've got any information on whether numbers are declining or increasing.
I know that there are 2 new applications in Basildon.
Councillor Buston.
Thank you. We used to have, I believe, a number of pole dancing clubs and things like that. You saying we don't have any of those anymore? They've all disappeared, which would be an interesting term.
If you're referring to the one that used to be on Magdalen Street, that doesn't exist anymore. As far as I'm aware, that is now HMOs, has a multiplication for those event title. Other than that, I believe the club that's currently operational may have that option available. I don't know. I haven't been there recently. In order to inspect. The one in Queen Street still exists. That is the only one that's in operation.
That's the one.
Just it's pole fitness is a very acceptable and legitimate activity. I'm not saying pole dancing isn't, because it isn't illegal, but that it's increasing in popularity. In fact, at the Green Monkwick Fun Day, and it is very good for core strength and fitness. So I just hope that there isn't any confusion between legitimate health activity and something that would need to come before this committee.
In the policy, there are conditions and requirements that you have to meet in order to be classed as a sexual entertainment venue or club, and yes, so there is very different rules to that.
Thank you. Any other councillors wish to raise a point? Well, members, it has to go to full council, as the word stated there. It's asked to recommend it's referred to the full council for adoption. Have a proposer and a seconder. Thank you very much, Councillor Buston and Councillor Hook. Vote on that, please. Thank you very much. Thank you, members.
Chair, can I just clarify, please, that the policy will be adopted subject to the amendments of the areas that have been pointed out. So subject to that, you're recommending.
I'd assume that absolutely
Yeah.
correct. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for being there for those amendments. Thank you. Okay, so that's item 7. Item 8, I now invite Matthew Evans to present a report for our work programme, please.
Thanks, Chair. As members will know, this is a standard item. There are no proposed changes or revisions to the work programme. So unless there are items that the committee wishes to see examined in more detail in the future, or officers might want to suggest items to be brought back or rearranged, the report is just for noting. Thank you.
Any speakers? Duly noted then. Thank you very much. And there being no other items on the agenda, I declare the meeting closed. Thank you.